Today, our editing tutorial is on this image from Babcock State Park in West Virginia. Today, in keeping with the season, even though it's a little late in the season as we're going into winter, I thought I would show you how to go about creating a gorgeous fall-autumn look for your nature and landscape images. The first thing I typically analyze with any of my photos when I bring it into Lightroom is that I'm looking for what my focus is. Because I know that our whole look for today is autumn, I want to focus on the colors that match that particular season. So that would be my red, orange, yellows, and then just simply having a warmer look to the image. So with that said, let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to do is change my profile from Adobe Color to Adobe Standard. And then next, I want to warm up our photo. And we're gonna warm it up quite a bit here. So we have that, and then I'm also going to decrease a little bit of my tint, take out a little bit of the purple there. Now it looks good. So next, exposure and contrast. My exposure is pretty spot on, so I don't have to adjust anything there, but I will decrease a little bit in my contrast. And I'll also do the same in my highlights. Now for my shadows and my whites, I'm going to increase both of those. We're going to go quite a bit in my shadows. And not so much in my whites, but ever so slightly. And then for my blacks, we're going to go the opposite, decrease that. Now, typically when I'm editing, I usually, whatever I do in shadows, I go opposite of that for my black levels. So in this case, shadows went up, my black level came down. So next, because we have all these rocks, got the foliage going on, we really want to emphasize our textures. So I'm going to increase both the texture level here, and we're also going to do the same with our clarity. That really emphasizes our edges there. And then we'll run a little bit of our dehazing. Now vibrance and saturation, we don't really have to do much here. Just add maybe a little bit in our vibrance and saturation there. That looks pretty good. We have my favorite area, our tone curve. So the first thing that I'm going to do is switch to the point curve and choose my point curve preset of Skyline Curve Strong. Now, I know in all of my editing videos, people always ask, well, how in the world do you get all of these options within your point curve? Well, I create these by my adjustments that I do on my tone curve and then save them. In my presets that you find in my store, you will have whatever the corresponding tone curve is for that specific preset. So you won't have the whole list that I have here. But if you have any of my presets, they will still function the exact same way. And as you can see, it added a very deep layer of contrast there. Now, one thing that I always mention at the start of a lot of my editing videos is, I know it might not look like it makes sense, but when we get to the end, it will make sense. So once we have that, we're going to go back to our parametric curve adjustments, and then we're going to decrease our dark level a bit. But we're going to take our shadows all the way up. And then we're also going to adjust our settings here. And I'm going to adjust this one. And there we go. So once we have that, then I'm going to go down to my HSL, or my hue, saturation, and luminance. Now, remember I said our focus was our red, orange, and yellows. So we really want to emphasize those colors in this particular image. So in doing so, our reds, we want to bring that down to about 50. We're going to do the same for our orange, come down quite a bit here. And our yellow, want to do the same thing. We're really going to come down quite a bit here. As you can see in our photo, we have a lot of green color tones. Because that's really not my focus for this image, I want to actually change my green to be more of a yellow look. So in doing so, we're going to bring our green level all the way to the left, which is more of our yellow look, to really blend in everything. So then once we've done that, we'll go down to our saturation, and we'll just emphasize a few of our colors here as well. We're really going to emphasize our orange levels quite a bit. as well as our yellows. And then do the same for our green. And that looks pretty good. Looks good there. So next I want to desaturate my aqua level and my blue level. So this is a great way if you have sort of like a blue tint over your waterfall. Is a lot of times that happens. In this instance, we don't have a sky, so we don't have to worry about blue up there. Because we had the blue tint sort of on our water, all I have to do is decrease my saturation for my blue color channel. And that's a quick way of doing that. For my purple and magentas, we're just going to throw those completely out. Now for our luminance, we really want to emphasize our colors here. So we're going to increase that quite a bit, especially in our orange level and our yellows. And so you can go and push everything however much you choose to. But for this, I just really love this look. And so we're just going to keep that. And then green, just do a little bit there. And looks pretty good. So then the next thing we're going to do is come down to our brand new color grading tool. For this particular photo, I actually want to use it in the way that split toning was done, which color grading replaced. In doing so, that means that we have to set our blending here to 100. I want to go into my shadows here, and we want to add some warmth there. Go into our more warmer colors and add a little bit of saturation. And then I also want to push up the luminance there as well. For our midtones, we're not going to adjust any colors. This is specifically just for increasing our luminance. So we're going to bring that up quite significantly. And then we also want to do for our highlights, same way we did our shadows. We're going to bring in some warmth, bring in some saturation. And that looks good. And then next, we're also going to pump up our our luminance here. Okay, once we have that, we'll come down to our detail. Now, I don't necessarily have to run any, extra sharpening because look at this. Our photo is just perfectly sharp as is. But I like to still add a little bit just for the heck of it. I don't know why. So then next, I'll run my lens corrections. We'll zoom out there, go into our make and model of our lens, which is the Zeiss Loxia 21. And there we go. Might take out a little bit of that correcting of our vignette there. So once we have that, we come down to our transform. And I'll just use auto and see what that does. Okay, I had a little bit of an adjustment there. Once we've done that, we're going to come down to my other favorite, our effects, where I just love having a vignette for my images. This is where this is going to be brought home. So we're going to start it off with the amount. And I always, well, not always, but usually my midpoint is always brought down to 0. So we're going to bring that all the way to 0. We're going to change our feather, bring that to 100, as well as our highlights. Now watch what happens when I change the amount. We get my signature look there. Isn't that gorgeous? I really love how that looks. Now, I will go and do a few final touches here. If I want to go in, we can. Now, I use these kind of interchangeably. Sometimes I'll use the radial filter. Sometimes I'll use the adjustment brush. But for this video, let's go into the adjustment brush. So we're going to highlight our waterfall here. And I'm going to turn off auto mask. And we're just going to highlight part of our waterfall. I don't want to really catch the parts that are already kind of overexposed, just the parts that's a little dark. And we want to increase that ever so slightly. So see how we just brought in the water that's kind of cascading over to kind of blend in a little bit more with the water that's down here on the lower rocks. And so add in a little highlight and boom, there we go. Nothing to it. So that's just a great way of using the adjustment brush tool if you've never used that. So once we have all of that, we're going to save our image and then we're going to pop it over into Adobe Photoshop, do some final adjustments, and then we're good to go. So now we have our image in Photoshop and we're just going to run a few final adjustments. So first thing first, let's run my favorite. Let's run a lens flare up here in this blank area. Let's put that there. We're going to undo it, run our layer, do a new fill layer, solid color. Once we have that, we go back to filter, lens flare, do filter, blur, Gaussian blur, have it on 55. Okay. Then over here with the layer where it has normal, we're going to select that and then choose screen. And then I'm going to adjust my opacity a bit. And then once I have that, I know a lot of people like to utilize the layers to do their adjustments in Photoshop. I don't like doing that. I like going ahead and flattening my image. So before I proceed, I flatten the image and then continue on. So next we're going to go to image, adjustments, levels, and I have several presets here and we're going to use my custom 7. So it adds a little bit in the highlights and my shadows and my black point. And that looks pretty good. Let's actually go up a little bit. Let's go to 8. That looks good. And then we'll go back to adjustments, our curve, and I have presets here as well. And I like 3. Let's go with 3. That looks good. That's our final image. And so there's nothing to it. Flipping back over to Lightroom, you know, this is essentially what we had for our start here, you know, with our before, that was our after, and then that's our Photoshop edit. Very simple, very easy. Try it out for your images, you know, see how you can manipulate those colors to really get a gorgeous fall foliage look. So until next time, I will see you all in the next video.